Good morning. Welcome back to the Tampa Bay History Center. My name is Brian Buttafuoco. I'm the Curator of Education here. Now, I'm standing here in our second floor gallery where if you were to visit the History Center, you'll find lots of great historic themes. Some of those include Florida's first people, the Seminole Indians, and even the development of the cigar industry in Ybor City. Now, I'm standing here just outside the Knight Collection, and this is a place where we can talk about Seminole Indian culture, and that's going to be the topic of our discussion today. Now, if you think about it, we can all identify with embracing our way of life, right? Whether that's something that's uniquely American, like a cookout on the 4th of July, or perhaps it's something more traditional that identifies with your own ethnic group, such as a family recipe that's been passed down. Well, the Seminole Indians are no different. In fact, we can't really talk about everything about Seminole Indian culture, but we can discuss one important element through the use of some of the objects inside the Knight Collection here, and that element today is going to be about food. So why don't you join me right inside and we'll talk a little bit about that some more. Corn has been a staple of the Seminole Indians for a few hundred years, and one of the traditional dishes that have been derived from corn is a dish that they call Softy. And Softy is this sour corn mixture that can be a number of consistencies. It could be consumed from a cup like a drink, or it could be spooned out of a bowl and have a consistency of something like porridge. Okay? It can even be served hot or cold. Now, the Seminoles could even add things like vegetables or meat to enhance the flavor. And traditional Softy is prepared basically the same way. It involves taking cracked corn and cooking it in water, and that cracked corn would, in the water would be added with wood ash. And what that does, it not only softens the corn, but it adds to the nutritional value and the flavor. So the traditional Softy, if you were to visit a Seminole village, most of the houses, or even a long time ago, the chickee huts that they were living in, would have a pot of Softy cooking over a fire. And it was open to anyone, family or visitors can help themselves, and they can actually serve themselves with wooden spoons such as these. You can see a good collection of those behind me. The Softy spoon is actually, I like to think, is symbolic of the sense of community that the Seminoles had with one another, basically for serving and taking care of one another in case they were hungry. And next we have another food source, and this is the Coon plant. Now, the Seminoles have been eating, not only the Seminoles, but the Native Americans have been eating Coon as part of their diet in Florida for a long time. And the Seminoles would learn from previous Native Americans. They would do this despite the fact that the Coon plant is actually highly poisonous. Now you might be thinking to yourselves, why would anyone bother with this plant in the first place? But believe it or not, for quite a long time, human beings have been processing plants and making them safe to eat by removing the toxins for quite some time. That's something you might want to think about when you're enjoying something like tapioca or cashews. Now, the Coon plant is actually quite special. It sort of resembles a fern or perhaps even a palm plant, but it's neither one of those. It's a cycad, and people actually refer to this plant as a living fossil because it's a variety that's been around since the dinosaurs. Now, Coon would be prepared in such a way where you have to leach out those toxins, as I mentioned. So the way this is done is you would pull the plant out of the ground, and it is the long stems that grow under the ground that they would make into a starch. Now, they take those stems and they would pound and grate them into a fine powder. This grater behind me was actually used in that process. And this powder would then be washed several times until it forms a paste. That paste would have to be strained of the water and then left to ferment for several days. Once the fermentation process is complete, they leave it to dry, and they're left with a flour that they can bake into a type of bread or cake, as you can see in some of these depictions here. Now, Coon itself, you might see growing in your neighborhood. It's a popular landscaping plant. So if you think about it, the Seminoles were very wise in that they were able to process a plant which was an easy process, and it was a food that was easy to find. Pretty smart. So in closing, The Seminole Indians were very good at adapting to their surrounding environment, and their use of food was no exception. That concludes our discussion. Be sure to check us out on TampaBayHistoryCenter.org. Check out our latest on exhibits, lesson plans, and a whole lot more. Thank you for watching.